The judge overseeing Lil Durk's explosive murder-for-hire case has officially struck down the prosecution's attempt to seek the death penalty, marking a dramatic turn in the legal war that once threatened to end the Chicago rapper's life, and now, incredibly, suggests that freedom might not just be a dream anymore, but a very real possibility. Just weeks ago, the world was bracing for the worst. Fans were shaken, headlines were buzzing, and social media was in meltdown mode after news broke that prosecutors were going after Lil Durk with everything they had, including a push for the ultimate punishment, execution. The mere mention of it sent shockwaves through the music industry. Here was one of the most influential rappers of the generation, a figurehead of resilience and hustle from Chicago's war-torn streets, now facing a punishment reserved for the most extreme criminals in American history. Many feared the worst. But today the tone is different. The air feels lighter, because the death penalty is off the table, and that changes everything. The decision came after a tense courtroom session earlier this week. Inside a packed room filled with media, supporters, legal teams, and security so tight it looked like a presidential press conference, the judge read the ruling with steely clarity. According to official court documents, the judge determined that the prosecution's case for capital punishment failed to meet the required burden of extraordinary aggravating circumstances necessary to justify execution under state law. In simpler terms, the evidence wasn't strong enough, the motives weren't clean enough, and the stakes, both legal and cultural, were simply too high to gamble with a man's life. For Durk, whose real name is Durk Derrick Banks, the announcement marked the most significant victory in what has been the legal fight of his life. While the murder-for-hire allegations still hang in the air like a storm cloud, the dismissal of the execution option is a major turning point. It not only eliminates the worst-case scenario, state-sanctioned death, but also signals a potential unraveling of the prosecution's overall strategy. If their boldest move was just shot down by the judge, what does that say about the rest of their case? Let's rewind for a moment to understand just how big this is. It all started with an alleged plot, a target, and a series of digital breadcrumbs that prosecutors claimed tied Durk to a carefully orchestrated hit job. The case was stacked with wiretaps, jailhouse informants, anonymous testimonies, and one very incriminating audio clip allegedly referencing cleaning up a situation permanently. That was a smoking gun, they said, the reason they felt confident enough to chase execution. But Durk's legal team came hard, attacking credibility of every witness, questioning the origins of the audio file, and painting a picture of a targeted man caught in a web of assumptions and vendettas. And now, it seems the judge has agreed with at least some of that argument. In the ruling, the judge specifically noted inconsistencies in the timeline of alleged events, insufficient corroborative evidence of direct orchestration, and a lack of conclusive proof linking Mr. Banks to premeditated intent to commit murder. In layman's terms, too many holes, too much reasonable doubt, too much smoke, not enough fire. And when someone's life is on the line, especially in a case as culturally charged, maybe isn't enough. The reaction has been immediate and powerful. Supporters outside the courthouse erupted into cheers the moment the judge's words landed. Within hours, Durk beat the execution trended worldwide. Messages of support came flooding in from fans, celebrities, athletes, and even politicians. Meek Mill tweeted, "This why we fight. Justice ain't perfect, but we ain't giving up. Salute Durk." Even Kanye West, famously reclusive when it comes to public commentary, shared an Instagram story that simply said, "God's plan." And what about Durk himself? According to sources close to his legal team, he broke down in tears upon hearing the news. He was overwhelmed, one source said. "You gotta remember, he's been sitting in that cell thinking he might die, not grow old, not get parole, die. Now that's off the table." The same source added that Durk has been reading daily devotionals, writing lyrics, and preparing for possibility that one day soon, he'll walk free. But this ruling doesn't mean he's out yet. The charges are still very real, and a trial still looms. However, legal analysts now say that the removal of the death penalty dramatically weakens the state's leverage. Without the threat of death hanging over his head, Durk's defense has more room to negotiate, more room to pressure witnesses, and more room to point out cracks in the story the prosecution has so aggressively pushed. This ruling also shines a spotlight on the state's overreach. Critics are slamming the DA's office for what they're calling a reckless pursuit of a headline-grabbing punishment. Civil rights advocates argue that the initial execution push was rooted less in facts and more in the optics of taking down a black rapper with a history tied to the streets. This was a message case, said legal scholar Tyrone Wallace on a viral CNN panel. They didn't want justice. They wanted spectacle. They wanted to send a message through Durk. But the system did its job. It said, "Not today." Even some former prosecutors are distancing themselves from the strategy, calling it premature and based on assumptions rather than airtight evidence. One former federal prosecutor said on record, "When you go for the death penalty, you better be damn sure." And in this case, they weren't. From a cultural standpoint, this moment is enormous. It reignites a conversation about how hip-hop artists are treated in courtrooms. Too often, lyrics are interpreted as confessions, affiliations are seen as conspiracies, and reputations are used as evidence. Durk's case is a perfect example. Prosecutors try to weaponize his past as music, even his tattoos against him. But the judge's ruling makes one thing clear. Artistic expression is not enough to justify execution, and that could set a new precedent for cases involving rappers going forward.